super pleased to see the numbers that have come out here tonight. We weren't sure what to expect, and we know what happens in your community is really important to you, and that right now we have a piece in that. So thank you for taking the time to come out and converse with us on this. And we will get started. If there's other people that are coming in, we do have somebody waiting at the door. And if there's anyone that is unable to be here tonight that you're talking to that would like the same information, Sean is recording the meeting as well. And will that be posted?
Yeah, post on the website. And make sure that it's very easy to find on our main page from the website. If you want to direct any traffic to that, it'll just be on our front page at rcsd.ca.
Perfect. Thank you. So I would just like to open by acknowledging that we are on Treaty 4 territory, the unceded traditional lands of the Nehiyawak, Nakwe, Nakota, and homeland of the Métis, Lakota, and Dakota. I recognize that I am a settler here on this Treaty 4 land, and I feel grateful and blessed every day to be able to live and work here. And as I walk on my journey of truth and reconciliation, or reconciliation, as I've heard it lately, and I like that, I take my family, my friends, and those surrounded around me on that journey with me. And on that note, I would like to ask Trustee Bob Kowalczyk to open in prayer.
Good evening. I would like to invite those of you who are of our faith to join us in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we come today to you asking for your guidance, your wisdom, support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion. Allow us to grow closer as a group and to nurture the bonds of our community. May God, who created a world of diversity and vibrancy, go with us as we embrace life in all its fullness. May the Son who teaches us to care for the stranger and the foreigner go with us as we try to be good neighbors in our communities. May the Spirit who breaks down our barriers and celebrates community go with us as we find the courage to create a place of welcome for all. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
So for the chunk of the meeting, we're handing it off to Sean, our Director of Education here, Sean Chase. I'm assuming if there's a burning question, Sean will take it throughout the presentation, but preferably we'll keep our questions to the end so that Sean can address them all at the same time. I'll hand it over. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. A real pleasure, as Sean said, to have such a great turnout. We weren't entirely sure what to expect tonight, but this is very reassuring for us because lots of work and energy has gone into some thoughts and plans and understanding of perhaps next steps around here. Before I go any further, though, just the rest from our group here. So you met Shauna Weniger, our chair of the board, Bob Kowalczyk, trustee, our deputy chair, Brian Bass, and another of our trustees, Ms. Vicki Bennell. And at the door, some of you, just came sneaking in here. Principal of Holy Rosary Community School is Karen Istas, who also I'm going to ask us to join in. We had a meeting yesterday morning and I was able to have a little bit of presentation for her. Karen is T-minus about 15, 16 days before experiment. So maybe join me in a round of applause. She has been a wonderful, wonderful advocate for this community. Those of you who've had students involved here at Holy Rosary Community School can attest to that. So again, welcome. Thank you for taking time to be here with us this evening. I do have a handful of slides. I'm going to zip through some of them fairly quickly at the beginning. They're a bit of a historical piece on the school itself, because that, of course, is an impetus and a precursor to the conversation that we're having here tonight. Before I go any further, there are a few folks that have joined us tonight who are part of that I'm getting to know recently from the Cathedral Village Community Association, who also have connection to the Cathedral Village Arts Festival. And I just want to recognize those individuals and their extended team. It's what a couple of weeks ago, it probably feels like a lifetime ago for those who put all the time and energy into it. My wife and I had the pleasure, we would come every single year, and I cannot believe the number of Regina Catholic School Division staff and families that we saw. It was an incredible gathering, and I just kudos to all the folks behind the scenes who pulled community together on behalf of that, because that was tremendous this year. All the way, tents starting at Albert Street and finishing all the way at Elphinstone and all in between. So kudos to all those folks. It was a great celebration, and we sure saw plenty of Regina Catholic School Division families who were enjoying it. Awesome. Okay, so as I said, some items to start us out here in terms of things. So I'm going to start and take a bunch of slides, go through them quickly. Again, if you do have a question in something specific, stop me about Holy Rosary School. In this room, we spent some time a few months ago sharing some very unfortunate news with our community here, something the Board of Trustees, administration from the school division had hoped we did not need to do. We shared the unfortunate news of the necessity of the closure for Holy Rosary Community School due to irreparable structural issues. And so this is a little bit of a timeline in terms of how that started. Way back in October of 2020, the board moved to officially review the school. A review of a school is actually in legislation in the Education Act here in Saskatchewan. School boards are asked to monitor the viability of all the schools that they operate from a dollars and cents perspective on a yearly basis and come forward. And Holy Rosary Community School, yes, aging infrastructure, but the greater troubling issue in this had been a significant decline in population. Holy Rosary had dipped below 100 students a number of years back, and so it was on the back and forth and its viability. So the board started into this process to review, and you can see some of the information that goes from there. The next piece of the timeline, the school review committee had consultations throughout within the community. There was a survey that was conducted in December, just before Christmas in 2020. February 11th, the committee presented to the Board of Trustees. The board had originally suggested that they were going to make a decision by March of 2021. At that point, they didn't feel that enough information had been gathered to inform the decision, so it was delayed to December 31st of 2021. And during that period of time, from February to December, we went through every single nook and cranny, and quite honestly, mostly from a fiscal perspective, to understand everything we have from our funding models and what we would be able to do to analyze the viability of the school and whether or not the board could afford to continue to operate it, given the fact that our projections for years to come were still pretty steady in that low, about 110 to 120 students. What we discovered after completing a further financial analysis was that we felt it actually was doable to keep the school open. We did a cursory, the overall usual inspection of the building. And at that, we mean that's a visual inspection in terms of everything. When you're talking about a school that's over 100 years old, we didn't go pulling things apart, but we reviewed everything to say, yeah, we can keep this going, keep the building open safely, and maintain a really important Catholic education presence in this community that was over 100 years in its history. So that decision was very welcome around here, and in our boardroom celebrated just down the hall over here that we're going to keep Holy Rosary Community School open. So things happened very quickly with that. One of the things that the Community Schools Association had done here was enlist the help of some of their members to create a before and after school program, because we had heard loud and clear that that was really integral to families here. So that was successfully taken in. We also made a move. We moved our multilingual and multicultural assessment center, which was previously located with Open Door. We relocated it into the main floor here, just inside the entrance at Holy Rosary Community School. And we started welcoming all families new to Canada, new to our community, right through those doors walking in. So we had some great celebrations going alongside things. This is just a bit of information I mentioned earlier in the Education Act, school review criteria that is expected of us in terms of how we need to review every single school, and all that information was assessed in that previous review. In between here, I'm skipping a little bit of slide. So historically, what happened? We made all those decisions. Everything was great. We're in June, heading out into the school year. Everything's fantastic. A day in late July, I want to say the 25th, my facility supervisor and I have discussed this back and forth because it was a memorable day for all the wrong reasons. I was coming to the office next door and I noticed that he was lingering around the front of the building. So as soon as I came in that day in July, he asked me to come over and look. And what had happened is we were about to affix signage on the east side of the door, the front entrance of the doorway, to announce that this is the new location for a multilingual and multicultural assessment center, just like what's on the opposite side, the west side of the door where Holy Rosary School is. There's nice signage there. We wanted to match it on the opposite side. Our facilities crew went to go and begin the prep work for that. And as they did, something very troubling started to happen. They were able to pull some brickwork out by hand from the front facade of the building. Okay, pause for pause. Let's stop and see what takes place. So in the coming months that followed after that, we brought more and more folks in to look at it. We ended up, and those of you who are in the community would recognize the area being full of scaffolding, lots of tarp work over top of it, and we started to do the repairs to the exterior portion of the wall. But at each point within those repairs, we ended up now actually digging deeper. So as they started to fill some cracks in the front, we started to get seepage right through into the drywall on the classrooms that are on the south-facing side, which was very disconcerting. It was actually seeping right through as they were trying to do some fixing in there. They searched, went up top, and then eventually went down into the basement of the building. And at that point, it was troubling enough that we enlisted the work of a structural engineering company that we worked with for years to come in and start to do a very robust assessment in terms of challenges that we have with the structure of the building. And in each of those instances, it's kind of like the analogy of lifting up a rock and then you see what's underneath. And unfortunately, the results underneath each of those rocks that we pulled apart became more and more troubling, to the point where the eventual information that we received from the group was that there is significant and irreparable, and by irreparable, their exact question word, this is not a matter of how many millions of dollars you put towards this. These are issues that we're not able to repair in this building. And a quick history tour on the building, originally built in 1919. There was an addition made 9 years after that. There's a major structural steel beam that goes across. I'll show you some photos of that shortly. That goes east-west across the middle of the building and literally divides the south from the north portion of that. How that was kept up and put in place over the years was a variety of different bricks that were crumbling and pulled apart. It was weight-bearing and load-bearing to the point of really distressful for us in terms of things. So we've put some significant mitigation measures into place, but that started the conversation in terms of we have no option left. So I'm going to go through a few of those slides that get to a little bit further detail. So here's the structural review information. It had served its useful life, and that we were asked to make plans to replace it within the next 3 years. The structure needed to be inspected every 6 months. Possible repairs may be required at some walls to ensure satisfactory performance. I'll show you some photos of what we've done. We did some work on the exterior to the east of the front door, then we followed that up and just recently took the tarps down and the scaffolding on the west side of the door, and we've done all sorts of bracing to the interior of the building to be able to keep it open safely in the interim. That's described right here, and then there's the steel beam that I will show in an upcoming slide. So here's steps that was taking place from the school division at that point. We immediately met with the ministry, government officials as well, to tell them of the challenge that we have in place here and the unfortunate news that we need to ponder delivering to the community of Holy Rosary Community School. We did apply for emergency funding. Our totals in terms of repairs made to the building right now are creeping into the neighborhood of about $600,000. We've received about 75% of that in some emergent funding from the Ministry of Education, which is very helpful for us. It's a hard fiscal decision to put dollars like that into something when you have a plan to close it in the not too distant future, but it's about doing the right thing, and that has been the stance of the board all along throughout this process, to serve kids and families to the best of our ability. We did add Holy Rosary School to Capital's projects list with the Ministry of Education. That's a list that all 27 school divisions in the province make submissions to the government to ask for major capital, as in building a brand new school or rebuilding a current school in that instance. So as an example, St. Pius Argyle School, not too far from here. There are some friends here from Regina Public School Division. The Argyle portion opened just a few weeks ago. Our half of that building, the St. Pius building, we will open in September next year. So that was an application, a joint application by the two boards. It sat on that list. The ministry evaluates all those applications from across the province over the years, and each budget year makes announcements in terms of where that money goes in terms of. So we have made application for that. We will be honest and have from the beginning. When the government goes and does their work, it's their work, not mine. So this is our interpretation of things. A school that we can't show you projections 15 years out, getting beyond 120 kids in population, is not likely to make it very high up onto the list in terms of priorities from a ministry level. It's as simple as that. I don't think that's with it, but from an efficiency standpoint, they're going to consider every single new build that is applied for. And in a school like that, where we have relatively close in Regina Catholic, a beautiful facility at St. Park, not too far to the south, we're opening St. Pius schools. Their job is to look at the really big picture from the 30,000 square foot. We don't have much confidence that that is ever going to be assumed.
I guess on that, the thing is, both those schools are both over capacity as is though. All those around there, are over capacity already.
Sacred Heart, we've got capacity to take actually about all 120 of our kids here right now. It was a big building, gave us room to grow, and Pius will kind of have the same. We were able to get enough to build with additional so that we could grow into it. So as it stands right now, they'll be on the books that they'll show from the ministry level under capacity the way they do their ratings. But yeah, good good point. So the structural information here, as noted, this is an overhead view. So this is the building articulated much like we're in it right now. Here's the gymnasium, which is just out that door for us here. The southwest repair date we have completed. Southeast wall has been repaired. And then the couple beams on the floor, I'll show you here into some pictures. Some of the telling signs as they started brick work, there was actually a layer of bricks on the exterior that was not properly affixed to an interior layer that was already there. And then there were window surfaces in the interior wall with it. And so that bracing was one of the key things that we needed to address. You can see a little bit of the support piece here. This is a heat map in terms of where you can see some of the red spots from the street level, which was one of the greatest levels of concern as the building has shifted on the soil here, and the lack of stability in terms of the crucial infrastructure, the walls. Here. So here's an example. Sorry, back to that. Here's an example on the top floor of where we did this. The engineers came in and built these beams right from floor up one over top of another at each of the three levels to be able to secure and stabilize the building. They also went through and did laser measuring across the entirety of the building so that we're able to, every 3 to 6 months, measure and see what movement is still taking place in the building to ensure safety in the interim. So that work has been done. There's another example. That's at the basement level of what was done. That was previous, and you can see this is that steel beam that goes across the width of the building that had been supported previously just by a layer of bricks throughout. And so we've gone and done this work on both sides to be able to secure that is right through the middle of the building. Spoke about that earlier. This is our current distribution of students back in December. This was the information of enrollment projections back as December 22 that I mentioned. We need to submit this with the ministry, with the Ministry of Education in terms of the business case for us and the example of why we would like to rebuild, the potential be considered for a rebuild of the school on that site. As you can see here, there's the stability in terms of numbers. That's not making a particularly compelling case for us.
When Connaught School got replaced, they were inundated with way more students than their projections said.
Yeah.
Is that something you've thought about?
We have. We've actually looked, and what we take is information based upon market share. So that means between us, Regina Public School Division, and their schooling options, the number of kids who would potentially look towards education. So we've examined that data and seen in terms of where our current boundary is, potential expansion from other, and it doesn't really paint a picture for us of that being a possibility of us achieving additional students.
Connaught School didn't expect that inundation either.
Right. Yeah. You know, it's a piece of the puzzle that's hard for us to build a business case to the Ministry of Education that's dependent upon those numbers. Is it a possibility? Potentially.
I just, back in 2020, when you guys did do that, and Connaught School again, right, was being rebuilt or planning on being rebuilt, you guys did actually reach out to them and consider doing a joint Catholic and public school there. What happened with that?
My understanding at the time is that that site, it wasn't a site that was available in terms of land space to be able to house in schools. I don't want to speak for the Regina Public folks here. I'm seeing a nod from there. The current Connaught site, housing what they have, would not have been able to add the additional space for another school that goes with it. I think there was talk of something a little further south down Elphinstone Street and looking at different possibilities. But the land space to be able to house the size of a joint school wasn't something that was ever discovered as a viable location in this immediate neighborhood. That was unfortunately the challenge that existed. So where it led us to, as I said, back to here, conversation with our neighborhood, with our families here, after unfortunately delivering the news of us having to go through and close and make plans to close the building and hold the school. We came to the community to ask what makes the most sense for our families here in terms of looking after their needs, the needs of their kids and their families. So we posed and reached out to ask the question. Okay. Technology not failing me yet, not yet. We posed two options to families here. An option of closure for this June, so what would be currently in June of 2023 or June of 2024. And the options that were provided within this, what we had suggested to families, and thank you for the question earlier that led to it, is amalgamating the current boundary of Holy Rosary Community School with that of Sacred Heart Community School, which is a relatively new build, about 7 years old, in a beautiful building, 3-story building where we have capacity to house the entire population here and comfortably move over to that location. So we provided that as an option where we would start the transportation, amalgamate those boundaries, and begin that in September of 2023, or for to delay that process for another year, keep Holy Rosary and continue Holy Rosary Community School operating as is for next school year, 23-24, and then slated for a closure on June 30th of 2024 with the same plan in place to amalgamate the boundaries and move kids to Sacred Heart School, where again, we have the capacity and a new modern facility for them. So that information went out to our families in a thought exchange. This is what we asked of families. We had a pretty solid participation rate in terms of this, a very solid participation rate given the number of students in the school who gave us 64 thoughts. And the survey in this instance, that's how many children each of those families had. And then the question that was posed, sorry, I cut that one off one too early. In the end, we had in the neighborhood of about 78% of families who asked us to go operational for the forthcoming year, 23-24 school year. So that was the decision that was made. That was communicated to families. We'll continue operations here. We've since then, Karen, as principal, has reached out to families to ask the question and see what they need of us to be able to go through. The initial reaction on that survey was very positive in the number of families who have chosen to stay with us here at Holy Rosary. We do have a few who have taken the option, and we will provide transportation. They'd like to start the transition to Sacred Heart in next September. So we're going to provide that option for them and transport those kids. And of course, from some families which we anticipated, we decided that maybe neither of those is the option they're looking for, and they're going to pursue something else in terms of their school. So that's where our plans have arrived in terms of Holy Rosary Community School. I'll pause there just to see if there are any further questions. Yes.
Multilingual, multi-language assessments
Yes.
that was brought in here. It was brought in recently, like in the past year.
Yes.
Given that that was introduced, I mean, where does that go, and would that not, in fact, down the road, encourage more people to come to this school because that service is here?
Right. So the service itself, just to be clear, is just the initial intake to help people through the registration and, if necessary, do a language assessment on them. So families, wherever they've already settled on living quarters in the city of Regina, would then be filtered to come here. So in terms of recruiting families to this particular location, that hasn't been our experience since we've been there. And yes, absolutely, that's a consideration for us, that we need to find a new landing space in terms of what we're doing for administrative office. Yeah, thank you. Mm-hmm.
So for the transition to Sacred Heart, that's going to mean busing
Yes.
of all those kids.
Yeah.
Taking them out of this neighborhood where they live to a new neighborhood. How does that fit within the principles of the community?
Yeah. It doesn't, to be very frank, it doesn't. We have a wide variety of boundaries and size of boundaries for our kids. Our French immersion schools, because we are serving the entirety of the community of Regina, our French immersion boundaries are spread for the entire city amongst 5 schools. So those are massive geographic areas where we would do that with regularity of taking families out of their community, if you will.
That would be a choice of that family. So I think
100%.
that would be a choice of that
Agreed.
family to choose French
Yeah.
immersion, knowing that their boundary is extended like that. If you don't choose French immersion, the expectation would be that you could go to school here.
Yeah, very fair. Agreed. So it's not an apples to apples, you're right, and we do have some geographic boundaries. Relatively, in terms of geographic area, the Holy Rosary Community School, as it is its boundary, would be probably medium-sized, medium smallish from ours compared to some of the English-speaking schools. But yes, this will be absolutely a less than ideal option from our perspective, because we will be putting kids on a bus. It's not a long, and again, compared to some of our sizes. I'll go to an English-speaking school like St. Gabriel, which now, as it continues to expand east and we're working towards a new school, is a massive geographic boundary, and we are moving kids a long way by a bus to get there. That's a very different situation than here, but it's the reality. It won't be long in terms of physical distance to move kids to Sacred Heart because it's not that far geographically, but it is 100% moving that way and not ideal.
Will that allow kids to participate in after-school programs, or are they
Yes.
just going to be bus bound?
No, yeah, that's always going to be a challenge with families. And anyone who's staying in regardless of the school and after-school programming wouldn't receive transportation. But this will be an added bit of challenge for families because what might be walkable for kids in some distances is going to be a longer distance to traverse.
Across.
Exactly, yeah. So that 100% that's going to be a challenge. The good news story at Sacred Heart Community School is it is resourced in a different way compared to some other scenarios. And we do have some staff and people around there who, in some instances, may have some ability to help alongside with that. But it will be a barrier, undoubtedly.
Sure, what's the boundary currently for our rosary area?
Essentially, it takes us up to Dubney, south of Dubney, and then basically kind of along the creek with Albert Street as the boundary to the east side.
So none of the current children currently attending Holy Rosary fall within the boundary of St. Pius?
Possibly, but
They have to be
Pius,
south of the creek, is what that?
Pius is it's French immersion. So they would have to change language programming for that, yeah.
And
We
west,
managed to complicate that.
west, they go all the way to the edge.
West goes essentially along to the edge of, when you have to Louvain, south, and then kind of cut off with Dudney.
But they would go over Louvain, right? Like more west of the Louvain?
Like on the, like from the exhibition grounds, you mean?
No,
Or
I'm
down
down like 13th Avenue, like across 13th Louvain. That was
There's some of that area, and we've split that back and forth with the bus for transportation. Some of those kids, depending on the neighborhood, go north to St. Francis School, and there across Dudney there,
Yeah.
and there's a scoop that comes from that direction towards us here. Yeah. Yeah, it kind of revolves those transportation routes over time and boundaries based upon where families. Yes.
Is Deshay very full too?
Shade is, we've removed a whole pile of portables from the shade a number of years ago because it had grown larger, and then when we opened St. Cathedral. So now it is actually beyond capacity for us at this point based on what our projections are for next year.
That's an English program.
It is an English program, yeah, it is, in terms of capacity and building, et cetera, with it. Sacred Heart is a far superior building in terms of the building itself, which has informed our decision from that. Deshay is quite a limited in terms of resource center, multi-purpose space, office setup, gymnasium size, all that stuff in comparison. Yeah, unfortunately, it pales in comparison to what we have with a really nice new build at Sacred Heart.
I just have a question because my understanding is that Connaught is, kind of bursting at the seams. Crescent's is definitely bursting at the seams. Their enrollment hasn't been so high in several decades. There are also a lot of students who come there. I think their parents work downtown, so there's a lot of students who choose to do that because it's more convenient for them with their parents' workplaces. But it's also so many newcomers to Canada, like I think maybe 30% at least are newcomers. And I just wonder, does Center Square, the area downtown, does that come here or does that go to, where do those kids go? Because that's a huge source of population. I guess I'm just wondering about, to me, it seems like it's just such a gorgeous church.
Yeah.
And the school's been here so long.
Yeah.
It seems a shame not to have any options for Catholic education. And I guess one thing I just wonder is with Connaught, I think their enrollment increased by hundreds with the new school. Like enough that I do know for a fact that they had to kick kids out who were going there because they had no more space for them because there's so much desire to attend a new building, like a new facility. Yeah, in the area. Right. And so I guess I just wonder if Deshay is above capacity, and that's kind of the nearest English-speaking Catholic program heading south.
Yeah.
I guess I just wonder for opportunities. I swear that if there was a new school here, it would be packed because people want a new school.
Yeah,
And the Crescents is also talked, like, I know it's a kind of a panic situation there with how much their enrollment's going just in 1 year.
don't appreciate the point. Not in a position to support or counter from the Rouge public side of things. I think for us, the unfortunate reality in terms of it, I hear what's been said about the hope of new families coming. But when we make applications to the Ministry of Education in terms of it, we need to provide statistical evidence that says here's what an analysis says of what we would have for families. And we simply don't have a leg to stand on. And we've been watching that for several decades. Holy Rosary Community School have not been able to really increase that.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I know it's always.
I hear what you're saying, yeah.
But wouldn't they have statistics based on new schools that have opened, how much their enrollment has increased, how much was projected versus what actually happened?
Yeah, but that would certainly be neighborhood dependent. Yeah, very much so.
I'm one of the Regina Public School Board trustees, and I just have a bit of data about the public schools around here. So Connaught, the capacity is 415 right now, and right now it's at 435, so it's at 105% utilization. And Crescent's capacity is 220 and it's at 270, which is 123% utilization. But there is still space at Lakeview. It's underutilized somewhat. Just to give a public context.
I just want to jump in and just say that, like, as far as having Catholic education in this community, aside from families living in this community, the people that it's most important to actually be able to provide that service is us. This is not a decision that we've come to by choice. This is a decision by necessity. And we have made the application to the ministry, and if that opportunity comes up, we would be very happy to explore having a Catholic school again in this community. But we have also spoken with the ministry, and we know that that is not a viable option at this time, and probably not anywhere in the near future. They've made that very clear, and they partially made that very clear when they denied us a new build with Connaught. So I think they have spoken to what they're willing to support, and ultimately it's put us in a position of not having a viable option within the community. But we are committed to providing Catholic education and to the people within this community that want it, and we will make that accessible. But as far as the actual decision, the decision is made and final.
Based on what you just said then, if you had a change of view from the Department of Education, from the provincial government, would that change your plans for the future if you received funding?
It would definitely not change our immediate future because this facility has been made safe for a very defined period of time. But I mean, we have not said we will never again provide a Catholic school within this community. That is why we've applied to the government for that funding. So I believe I said it in the media, that would be a really great day of celebration if we had the opportunity to do that down the road. But it would not fix the situation we're in because we have finite time. And if you hear what's going on in the community in terms of school builds and timelines, we do not have the timeline to build a new school, even if they approved it today, and have kids safely housed in it before this was no longer deemed safe. Is that fair?
Yeah, the unfortunate reality, and we can speak to that from some current situations, is we will have, from the point of application to actually opening the doors on schools that make it to the top of the list from ministry level right now is borderline 7-8 years from original application to it making its way to the top of the list. And that might be even perhaps a bit aggressive considering some of the ones. It's nearing closer to 10 years on some of them where we're working. So that obviously is a window well beyond what we're dealing with in terms of the immediacy of the situation.
Just on that topic, rebuilding school and anything happens to me, I guess this area is zoned for a school. So I know part of it, the field is that daycare. Now, everything else up to a certain point, I'm aware, is zoned for school.
Yeah.
And so I guess also school board on the side. I guess it would be advantageous for the school board to have the ability here or something like that.
I think that's a really great segue to kind of change direction in the program.
So complication for us, and that gets us exactly to where we're going from this. For reasons beyond what we've discovered here recently, Regina Catholic School Division has been in conversation for us from an administrative building, which we've outgrown next door. We're at about 16,000 plus square feet over there, and our needs assessment has us in the neighborhood of 35,000 square feet of needs. However, we've been working our way through with the building that's also collapsing. It's an original 1955 build with 2 more additions to it. We lifted it several years ago and tried to adjust things by putting some piles in, and that has not changed the same shift, and a lot of structural issues that we're having in this building are being replicated next door. But one really huge factor for us as we started to consider things, we've known it all along, but when this information came to us from next door, or for us next door at Holy Rosary School, is a very complex scenario in terms of utility services. So without getting into it too deep, some of the issues that we experience is that water meter and water servicing, gas meter, electrical main, and boiler for CVCA are all housed and shared within the basement area of actual Holy Rosary Community School. So when this building needs to close, that has caused us significant challenge and expedited our work in terms of replacing our administrative building next year. We've been on that search to replace that for a number of years. It has also been amplified by the fact that, like I said, we're about 20,000 square feet short of what we need. Our very good friends from, and I'm not picking on Regina Public because they've been very kind to us. We actually rent warehouse space from them in their warehouse right now because we don't have any access to it of our own. We have our entire infrastructure for our IT services consuming 3.5 classrooms at Miller Catholic Comprehensive School over on College Avenue, and Miller's about to cross 1,200 students next year with a huge population. We need to repurpose and get that space back. We have staff who are housed at St. Peter's School. We need to get them out, and St. Peter's going to be closed, due for closure 3 years down the road. We have SLPs, speech and language pathologists, as well as some elementary counselors who are housed in a variety of locations around the division. So we've been looking to amalgamate that for years. When we get this information and the structural engineer said Holy Rosary needs to be closed and it needs to be brought down and leveled with it, and with it goes with your key HVAC and electrical, it has provided us a very significant issue to amplify our searching for an answer for a new building for our administrative office, which has, as I said, been probably close to about a 10-year journey that we've been searching. Wrong direction.
Sean, can you just add one piece to
Please.
that? I think one piece that we've been asked by the Holy Rosary community, and I think this is a fair place to share this information as well, is that although we lose our HVAC and our boiler and all of that on that side, there was not a need to close the school in order to move buildings for our head office, because the school side functioned without head office. Head office doesn't function without the school. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, that those two do not ride on the backs of each other in terms of decision making.
Thanks, John. The symbiosis is more on behalf of the other side, right?
Yeah.
There's independence here, which for years had been part of the conversation of if we were to find a new division office, who would make sense as a partner in a building that is physically connected to an elementary school, right? Like that always governed conversations we were having with partners from around the city. Who would be a viable option where we would be comfortable with you being literally not just next door, but connected on the same lot as a pre-K to 8 facility. So for years, we had been exploring that. In fact, as part of the review before, the board entertained and asked people from the community to come forward as partners who might be able to share space between the two. So we heard from organizations like the YMCA and others who might have had interest. None of them really came with a viable offer in terms of what that might look like at the time. But yes, those conversations have been independent. So this is information taken from a business case in the same way that we do for schools. We need to submit that to the Ministry of Education for them to consider us with an administrative office. In school division lands for us, we don't receive dedicated funding to operate administrative offices, nor do we receive dedicated funding like we do for new schools to build administrative offices. That's on the school board to be able to manage your financial, to be able to work on that. So you will see everything from across the province, from new builds in division offices to much like we've had here, an old building that you kind of bump it and make it work for years to come because you have to be responsible from that perspective. This information shown in our presentation. This is information that we shared with them as well. There are obviously significant concerns with that building, not accessible. There are safety things we're not to code onto it because of how we've been operating that building for many years and been able to go beyond that. Ventilation, there's egress issues. And again, that connection between the two in terms of the HVAC, the infrastructure, et cetera. I'm sorry.
So the ministry, like, wouldn't the ministry expect you to like fund this out of your reserves or?
Yes.
Just,
You bet. Yeah, that's exactly that's how it works. Yeah. Out of reserves dollars that we can come up with to be able to fund it. It's not out of our operational dollars. Anyways, we continue into this in terms of the business case that we brought forward, and we did the same thing we did with Holy Rosary School, all sorts of pictures of challenges that we have within the building, estimated repairs on it, even with the fact that it still would not solve our issues for being about half the size that we need. We had tallied those up just under $2 million to be able to put into it, but then that, of course, was trumped by the information we've shared about the shared services within Holy Rosary Community School project.
Just before you go on, that last slide refers to the engineering report.
Yeah.
Is that a public document?
The engineering report.
Yeah.
Yes, we did share that when we had the meeting here with Holy Rosary Community School before. If you want a copy, you can just email me. Sure. Yeah, JCK Engineering is the.
Yeah, no, I'd be interested.
Yeah.
And just besides that one, have you guys had another engineering report from years ago? Just to kind of reference?
Not that I'm aware of. We did analysis in terms of what the building was for viability, and that wasn't the depth of the structural engineering report of pulling things apart. So we did that as part of the decision to keep the building open originally, but again, that is more on the surface, the visual inspection rather than the full structural engineering report that we ended up doing here as we went through the process of repairs. So no, I don't believe we did do that to the degree of this one in any recent years. A little more information that I've shared already here about challenges that we have in other locations, renting space, our information technology, having other areas of schools that are now full, which we need to be able to reclaim for our division office staff as we continue to grow. We'll be up in the neighborhood of 13,000 students next year, which is close to 1,000 more than anything we've had in the school division before. So we continue to grow as an organization, which is a good news. It certainly causes pressures for us, not just in schools, but from an administrative capacity. Okay, so I want to get into a little bit of the details about the parcel of land here so that everyone, because we've been looking at this, and I would use these three words on behalf of the board administration from here. The first one is respect for history. It has been mentioned several times here earlier today about the importance for us, and certainly from our organization, of Catholic education to this community. And history that's over 100 years that we are obviously not only very aware of, but very proud of from Regina Catholic School Division. So that has always been something top of mind to us and has informed some of those decisions, which yes, busing kids out of community to Sacred Heart is not ideal, but we still have a very viable and a great structure for there and a great staff to be able to house and program for those kids when it comes to it. So that would probably be item number one. Number two is alignment and congruence. And those terms have kind of been used in lots of our conversations moving forward with it. We recognize that now for over 100 years in this particular lot, for those of you residents, this has housed a very viable, beautiful Catholic elementary school. And beside it has been a very beautiful Holy Rosary Park. Now, there's debate on the name on that. And if you go on Google Maps, it's listed as Holy Rosary Park. I've had a few other community members tell me different names over the years from it. I say that with respect because I don't want to claim something from Regina Catholic that's maybe not there, but Holy Rosary Park is what we see from that perspective. So there's just over an acre, 1.08 acres, and I'll show you the map here right away, of the park space to the west of us over here in the southwest portion of the lot. That congruence and alignment piece also means to you as residents and the people that we serve in the community of Regina, that the idea of what could be here, either housing, bring things down, reconstruct, any of that needs to be in alignment, not just from, and with due respect to city officials who are here and working with it, not just from zoning and laws that are in place, but also congruence in terms of the history of this property, which again, from a Catholic perspective, was land that was originally sold, transferred to Regina Catholic School Division from several landholders in the interest of maintaining Catholic presence here in alignment with the Archdiocese and the cathedral that's immediately to our north here, and thinking of that from a long-term perspective. So that congruence alignment with the community itself, we recognize is incredibly important to everyone from around here, and what legacy could be left behind from this. And it has always guided our decisions before what's taking place here with Holy Rosary, while we looked at moving out of CVC beside us. It has to continue with it in guiding decisions moving forward for us, and it has. So I'll start with Holy Rosary Park here. Bear with me. I hope everyone can see this from a distance. I'm going to move around. So the area shaded in red here is that green space, the park. Here's Holy Rosary where we are right now. Attached to it is our division office portion over here, parking lot. See the cathedral easement with it. Get into the learning center up here. This parcel here, a property for under the ownership of Regina Catholic School Division, 1.08 acres in total space here that currently resides in the park. So at this point, we have heard loud and clear in informal conversation, we're here to hear otherwise from County tonight, that maintenance of that green space is absolutely crucial to the community. So that's an intent from our perspective. We have had initial conversations, and I will call them at the very highest and informal level, with the city of Regina, with an intent from the Board of Education to maintain that space, to perhaps transfer title to the city of Regina, and then somewhere down the road, wherever that might be, because we need more schools in lots of places, recognize land given to the city here that would then be used for further projects in terms of school builds for Regina Catholic. So that has been prioritized from the school board. We've had those initial conversations with the city to say this needs to remain a landmark portion from the community. I'm going to pause. I'm seeing head nods. I want to test that assumption with the room that are here with us right now. That informally has been said to us, so I just want to test that. Yes.
Wonderful for here.
What's the response from the city?
The city was very positive towards that.
And is it positive in maintaining a park there?
The interest of it right now is that that's part of the agreement we have right now. The city has been great and has been doing maintenance for us on that.
I meant keep it as a park.
Yes.
As opposed to.
Yes.
Take it and change it into something.
When we approached city officials, it was with that concept of we believe that that's what we're going to hear tonight, and moving forward that would be the interest. And I think that was the interest of the folks at the city as well. Again, don't want to speak on their behalf, but I think it was very clear to us that that was their intent as well, that would be maintained. Lots of hands. Sorry, I'll start back here.
Just quickly then, with the city, do you think the city would intend to change the zoning of that piece of land to maintain it as a park and take it away? At the moment, it has potential to be a commercial space.
Yeah, again, I'll speak to the nature of our initial conversation. That whole idea of commercial, et cetera, like that was not on the table. It was about green space from there. So that's something we would like to move forward
as a green space.
Correct. Yeah, that was the intent. And that would be something that we would be, I think, very prepared as part of our plans to formalize that. And I think that would be the intent from the city to formalize that as well.
No, I was just watching for hands,
Okay.
sorry.
Hi, and I'll just say, so I'm with the city and there's some city colleagues here and I know there's a counselor here as well. And so I think what we can say is we were, I would say, very appreciative of being brought in kind of through this process. And we're here to listen to the community and what they want. So I think all I would be able to say right now is there's absolutely nothing that's been predetermined other than our commitment to work closely with the community and the school board to make sure that whatever evolves, we're working in a super collaborative way. And so we're just here to listen tonight, but I just wanted you to know that there's city folks here and it's important to us that we're listening to the community.
Great. It's a great community asset that should be preserved. So.
And I live in the community, so I'm with you.
I have a question.
Why is it so hard to get a commitment? It seems like everybody is talking, but nobody's saying, this is a commitment. You know, why can't there be a commitment? Why is it has to be saying maybe, might be, maybe not? Like,
yeah,
things happen when money comes in. A big developer comes in and offers something.
Agreed. Yeah.
Mine just go and they go after. I don't trust when people say this, all fluff and no commitment.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And that's what we're looking for is a commitment.
Yeah.
Because lately with city council, it's been very divisive lately, so it's very hard to trust.
I'll
Put any trust in this.
I'll start and say, we're very interested in formalizing a commitment like that. Prior to doing so, this was a piece that we are committed to. We want to hear from people before we make said commitment. There's a very strong interest from our board to maintain that with it.
Yes.
And hearing what we're hearing from folks here tonight is strengthening our resolve to ensure that we make that.
Yes, that's.
And understood.
That would be really, really bad for the area. I think it would drive our property values down. It would be disastrous.
And those same kids who are being bused away need a place to play.
There's no park around here except for the, not very park, you don't need green space. I guess in the road.
I think we have some other hands up as well, so before we move on, we'll let them speak to the park.
Yes, I agree that we need a commitment on the land to stay. But what about this area that we're on? What about talks on the city buying this land to make the whole area a municipal park reserve?
We'll get to that next. I'm gonna show that next parcel of land and talk some initial conversation for our.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And there was.
It's split into two pieces, so that's what I just want to speak from there.
And there's a question at the back here and then up here at the front.
My question was about the school sites.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get to that one next. Yeah.
So can you just talk a little bit more, Sean, about, I just hear this eagerness of RCSD to kind of rid themselves of this piece of the land. It strikes me, what is the rush for you guys to get it off your back, to turn it over to the city? I have a lot of the same feelings and thoughts around moving it to become city property. It's fine right now, even to get a commitment from the city with the current administration in place to say, yeah, we're gonna do this. And when the city administration switches, it can easily be rezoned. Like, they're gonna own it. They will own this land if RCSD just rids themselves of it really quickly.
Fair point. I wouldn't say, I think our interest is in the interest of making good decisions. And leaving this, we realize that there's lots of speculation, which has already been raised here tonight. And we're attempting to quell that before people are thinking that we're looking to sell to a developer to build whatever that goes with it. Because that's the part that has come our direction with it. So that was our intent to come with it. And the idea of having this conversation tonight about the preservation of park space has been brought to us as a priority from the community. We're hearing it very clearly here this evening. So I don't think in terms of the rush of ridding ourselves of it, the rush is to ensure that alignment piece, if you will. We're not rushing as it sits right now. It's not something that is that it costs us dollars and cents from that perspective. So it's not like we are running up operational costs or anything to go with it. Our interest is simply in making the right decision and assuring families as this gets closer to it that we're trying to align with their vision from it. That makes sense. It's not about
It makes sense to me. I still
yeah.
would challenge that once the city owns this land at any given time, it can be whatever agreement you want to make with them at this point. Like, it feels a lot safer for me, for RCSD to keep their commitment to keep the school open. That was the original commitment after the review, was to keep the school open.
Right.
We have capital acknowledgement in that we would like to new build on this. I would also challenge opening boundaries to push kids this way, to open our population up, to bring kids into us. We keep pushing them out east. You've said blatantly, there's no room that those schools are busting at these things. So pushing kids inward to the city is not going to harm kids, just like you say, taking our kids out of the community to a different school. Like, there are options. I would challenge providing statistics to the capital build project. Like, if you were to open boundaries, what would that look like? What would the population of this school look like then? If RCSD continued to own the land, didn't sell it to the city immediately, you would still have this land to come back to if you could prove a little bit more that that capital build is viable.
Yeah, fair, and I won't go too deep into it. I would challenge and go back, and we can certainly have a conversation on it. We don't have those capacity pressures in any of the immediate surrounding schools here. In case to those families that uproot them from the school where there is capacity, to move them in for us to hope to get a new building here would not be aligned with how we would typically go about our business. The schools in the immediate proximity from St. Pius, Shade, which as I said is leveling off that capacity, to Sacred Heart to the north, to St. Augustine's east, the closest with that. None of those are an instance where we have a situation where we're considering a boundary change because they are overpopulated. So removing kids from the school that's within our acceptable capacity to try and fill a school here in building a case for the ministry would not be something that we just simply couldn't consider. I appreciate the point, but those capacity issues aren't in the schools, unfortunately, to the immediacy of this geographic area.
And I think just one more point to add to that. There is a significant portion of the enrollment at Holy Rosary already that is technically not within the boundaries. I believe it's about 36 students, is that correct? That of that 120, about 36 of them are already from out of area and not within the boundaries. So we definitely haven't had closed boundaries.
I'd like to direct this to the city official that spoke earlier. First question is, what would it take to make a commitment? What are the steps? And secondly, is there a way of designating that particular area as a park forever without future administration being able to undesignate it?
Yeah, and I'll just go, I'm Nikki Anderson, so I'm the city manager for the city, just to put some context to it. And I think it's important that I say I work for council, and so much of what we do is we make recommendations, council ultimately approves what's being done. I would say the steps are, the first step is having a conversation. When I hear, even like, why hasn't anything happened yet? Why hasn't, the city done this with the land? The land doesn't actually belong to us, and that the first conversation to be had is, if this school is closing, what does the school want to do with it, and enter into those conversations. And I'd say that's the stage that we're at now. I also would say that, like, through the zoning, through the bylaws, through the commitment, that really is where you're kind of guaranteeing on the usage of that space is. And I mean, I could never say from now until eternity, it would never change. But what I can say is that we do the usage through kind of the collaboration approach, and that's where we look at the zoning and where we entrench in that, what it can and what it cannot be used for. And I would say school has been very, very clear about saying any conversations about potentially having the city have the land would only ever happen if the vision and the usage was aligned with what the community wanted, and the school being here kind of what they know it to be, and they've been very clear on that in our preliminary conversation.
If I could add to what Nikki had said, she's totally right. I mean, until the end of time, things can shift. What I would say, though, is that these kind of deals and relationships with the school boards have been going on for decades. So if you go to Central Park, which is in Center Square, that was the site of an old school. In exchange for the city incorporating some of that land into its municipal park reserve, we recently made good on a commitment crafted in the 1950s to then exchange land to the school board for the expansion of a school in Lakeview. So these relationships have been taking place for decades. Nothing is ever chiseled in stone and forever it shall be in a democracy. But basically what you want to ask for is for this land to be incorporated into the city's reserve of municipal park space. That provides it with a special status. Absolutely any democratic decision-making body with a majority can do various things. That's the nature of democratic processes. But if that becomes municipal land, that's a very different conversation. And as Sean hinted at early on, then there would be a conversation later on if the school was to build a new facility somewhere else now or decades into the future. We'd enter in a negotiation that there might be a like for like or some kind of framework in place. So if we make a public commitment and it comes to council to then take ownership under whatever negotiated agreement, that's pretty firm. It's as firm as you're ever going to get in terms of a commitment from two democratically elected bodies, one on the school board side and one on our side, to have this as a park space. And then the second part is the actual school facility, which I think Sean's going to discuss. But that gives you a sense of how long these specific conversations or types of conversations have been going on, I would argue, since Regina was founded in some capacity.
There was a question at the back here.
Oh, okay. I had one here too.
It's basically an observation more than a question, because what I'm hearing here and what personally I'm feeling myself is I would place more trust in the Separate School Board to keep that as a park than, quite frankly, I feel for the city administration at this point. Because over the last number of decades that I've lived here, I have seen more of a focus on the city being taken over by more and more development with no concern for what is actually happening in the communities. And I'm sorry to say, I don't trust the city administration very much. So I just bear that in mind. I'm not Catholic. I haven't sent my children to the separate schools, but I trust you guys far more than I do City Hall.
I think we've seen also where the former Marion Collegiate was, and that's all been turned into condos, development, hasn't it? Yeah. So, you know, it goes either way under certain circumstances, and we want to walk in circumstances. That's a good outcome.
Sir?
Just a point of information, who owns what?
Yeah.
In all of this?
So this is portion 1.08 acres. I'm about to flip and go to the next, and you will see the same scenario of the other portion of the land. We're going by parcel, land parcel. So 1.08 acres, Regina Catholic School Division, the proprietor of. This portion at 2 acres is us as well. I'll flip to that slide. I'm making sure I'm not missing another question from over here.
An early learning center is the other part of the.
Up there, yeah. Not us.
But also part of the green space.
Correct. Thank you for
Sorry,
clarification.
who owns the early learning center land?
Regina Early Learning Center.
Really some staff areas, yeah.
So it's
Kind of-
I don't know, it's not quite half. I don't know what acres would be, but it's basically from Pike Street all the way across.
Yes.
To that shed.
And obviously the church owns the church.
Correct.
And the parking lot?
No.
No.
I'll show that right away. This parking lot portion is us. The parking lot of the church up here is theirs.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess who owns the strip in between the church and that parking lot?
The easement, we do.
We do.
Yeah, we do. I'll get to that next slide. I'm answering.
Can we get
that? Here we go. Surprise. I can draw straight lines even on a computer pretty good for me here. So we're on Cameron. We're on 14th. This is us. This is our parking lot, and this is superimposed over, and I'm sorry if you don't see that very well. Again, our Catholic Education Center, Holy Rosary School, gymnasium, the room we're in right now, the shared administrative space, parking lot that goes all the way across on the north side of it here and north side of it here. This is some tarmac beside the building, all the playground space, and then this is referred to as the easement that extends all the way up to the west side of the Cathedral property, all the way to 13th Avenue. That spot is 2 acres overall in space. So combined 3.08 acres, 2 separate parcels in terms of those who are the experts in land, not me. That's how it's subdivided.
So my follow-up question.
Yes.
Is the fiscal relationship between the church and the school board?
Yes.
What is the connection?
What is the connection? I'm going to get to that in the next one. Partners, not fiscal relation, but partners in terms of obviously what we do and our committed mission together to support Catholic education.
Fiscal?
Yes.
Okay.
No, we don't. Officially.
It's kind of added a bit of history, but the new park there, the section that goes by the strip there that comes down there, that used to be extension of Garden Street.
Yes.
That's why it's still pavement there.
Yeah, and extended all the way through, right? You can kind of see even on this map that is divided into land parcels, that was the extension with it just on the west side of the school. Yeah. Okay, so where does that take us in terms of this? So conversation prior to the unfortunate news that we've realized next door, Jack Catholic School Division and the Archdiocese have been in years and years of conversation about the potential of that administration that we currently occupy, potentially being a pastoral center for the Archdiocese of Regina. Proximity, location, all those things make sense in terms of that, and them needing a new administrative office. They actually leased some space from us on North Broad Street in a former location of one of our schools for some of the pastoral center / administrative for a number of years. So that relationship and that conversation, as I said, this decade-long search for us as we continue to outgrow our facility and need new space has been ongoing to some degree of formality, in a little bit of the up and down based upon the day and what was going on and some of the priorities in the board at the time. So we've been in some of these conversations for a number of years about the potential of that administrative space, if we were to exit it, to be taken over from the Archdiocese. So I'll go back to the same thing that we discussed at the beginning when I said guiding principles for us. That would be alignment and congruence, and also something that we thought would make sense in terms of the neighborhood and thought process towards where folks have gone. And again, I'm using words that people have asked towards me, a development that doesn't necessarily make sense in the community aside from that. Thinking the idea of the Archdiocese and its presence with the cathedral there from an administrative lens would make sense for that alignment / congruence. So we've had those conversations that have been ongoing for, like I said, many, many years. What we've come to the understanding of is with the challenges of the infrastructure between the two buildings, moving in and maintaining that space next door as administrative office is going to be a challenge for anyone, whoever it is. The building really is beyond, in some terms, its own useful life once Holy Rosary School is no longer operational and has to be from that perspective. So our eyes turn to the idea of if the site, the school, as well as administrative office were to be leveled, and we had literally a level playing field from there, what makes sense for alignment and congruence in the neighborhood? Keeping park space here, what would make sense for a tenant from this location? So that has been engaged in conversation with us, with the Archdiocese of Regina, because, as I said, those have been ongoing conversations for quite some time. We've had some of those conversations. I'm invited here tonight on behalf of the Archdiocese of Regina. John Dibble is here. He and I have been part of this, as well as the Archbishop and a number of the other folks. He's also joined with a colleague, Mr. Krusniski, from the Archdiocese facilities, overall treasury group like that. So I'm going to ask, with being fair, I'm one to field all the questions tonight, and I'm comfortable with it as well as Sean and stuff, but to be fair, to give John a chance just to talk a little bit from the historical perspective of the Archdiocese. So John, welcome.
Thanks, Bill. Yes, I'm a volunteer with the Archdiocese. I'm a parishioner at Holy Rosary. My first home in the city was right at that corner of Athol and Pike, right about there. And my kids went to kindergarten and grade 1 here. And then my wife homeschooled, and we still live over on Angus Crescent. So this is my neighborhood, and I'm very glad to be here on behalf of the Archdiocese and Bishop Don. I'm sure he wished he could have been here. This came together very quick for the invite to the Archdiocese, and he has other commitments. In some of those conversations that Sean's been talking about when we were looking at becoming kind of a partner in that space, I was doing some of the historical title searching of how this property came to be. And I was intrigued to find out that the church originally assembled all of this land and had bought it from families like the McCaffertys, the McCallums, and the Hills. And that all happened in 1910. I'm like Jim and a few others here. I'm now a retired lawyer, but it was fun doing that search and seeing the titles and the names, and it all got assembled in about 1910 by the church. So the McCallums, the Hills, the McCaffertys, they had title. I think they went like this is 110, 15 years ago. This was prairie, and this was the vision that was being created. This was the Catholic precinct in the heart of the city to help build this community.
So in 1910, the church acquired that land, transferred it to the school board in 1914 for the construction of Holy Rosary Community School. And, you know, we're not part of, as the church, we would love this school to stay here, and we're simply in a conversation that if the school can't be here, then what? And that's where we would say, we don't know what the then what is, but we want to be part of that conversation. So we would, as the church, as Bishop Don, would like to, you know, be in line to acquire the property and then start the visioning and community planning process of, well, what next? Because we've got a 110-year-old iconic cathedral that is the heart of this community, personally. And, you know, we want something on that site that complements and works for the community and the church. So, you know, our conversations to get to the stage where Sean was comfortable inviting me are very fresh. So I can't say anything definitive. But some of us have, you know, we dream and we have vision. And so, you know, our first choice would always be, you know, that the school do what the school has done and do it well for the next 100 years. But if that decision can't be made, then we want to be in the middle of the conversation, what for the next 100 years, because the cathedral isn't going anywhere. For those of you who don't know, we've been working on a major renewal strategy and revitalization plan for the cathedral. We've been raising money, and if you haven't given yet, just come and see me right after. We've been planning, we've been at this for, I hesitate to say, 5 years, I believe. And when I was asked to co-chair that, one of the parts of that campaign, I didn't realize it was a life sentence. But we are about to start some significant work at the cathedral. The bid packages are out. The deadline for submissions is June 22nd. We hope to evaluate and pick the contractor to start some work on the cathedral early July, and the work will start in early July. And this will be a multi-year project. This is just the first 2 packages that we've prioritized, but we're making a major commitment to renew the cathedral so that it's there serving this community for the next 100 years. And I'm not very good at fielding questions. I'll do my best, but.
I don't know, this one might be for Sean as well.
Yeah.
I know that when the Early Learning Center was purchased and our property was evaluated, but it was significant work.
Yeah.
Have you had it evaluated to know what the work is?
We had a broker opinion of value done, and the range in that was between 1.9 and about $2.15 million for the, now that is for the, to be clear, what's in red, the 2-acre property. They extended that to the park, and we said, sorry, not interested, we're not looking at that. So that has been informed, and when we made, I showed you earlier, a business case about purchasing, building, et cetera, new property administrative office for our division, that is submitted to the Ministry of Education as well to recognize. We've had this chat. We've had that chat with Bishop Don. John's a lawyer. He's a great businessman and a negotiator. And friends and family, $1 deal is not something that we can do for taxpayers. There are taxpayers in the city of Regina Catholic School.
By the way, I'm still looking for the agreement from 1910 that says we get it back for $1. And if you know it's not too late.
Good luck, John.
We need to make a business case as well to support ourselves and for us to get into a new space where there's revenue from this dependent upon for us to get into what we're hoping to purchase for our administrative office. So that is all done and that is on the books for us.
I figured, it's pretty prime property.
And in fairness, that's part of us here tonight, folks, because I know, and that is something else that's been raised with me, that lots of people are nervous who live here that it's an attractive piece of property. And as Regina Catholic School Division, we're here to tell you from the integrity standpoint, not an intent of going to a highest bidder who would not be in alignment with beliefs and historical areas from this, which is what is informing this conversation first and foremost with the Archdiocese of Regina. Recognizing that there could be a whole lot of repurposes of people with visions for it. I'm not here to judge them, but would not be in line with what we've said of over a century worth of Catholic education, et cetera, in this parcel of land.
I guess my question is for you, Sean, is how do you see this conversation fitting with the proposal that's before the ministry for the rebuild? At what point does that, is there a timeline on that?
Yeah, what we've submitted this with the Ministry of Education, they're aware of both at the same time, parallel processes with it. They're aware of both situations of us needing space for us from an administrative standpoint, as well as our ask for the potential of a rebuild from there. So in terms of timelines, I can't tell you how that fits within their world. What we're trying to do is to be able to address both. We know we need to make an interim plan for the students from Holy Rosary School right now, which is articulated in the plan starting after June 30th, 2024. We also know how that's going to inform our needs for the office in terms of the space for Ms. Willing. That's what we pitched to the ministry, and we need to engage in further conversation to say, is there something out there that is a possibility? Our concern is the lack of non-committal from on behalf of the Ministry of Education, and we're not going to have time or we won't have the gift of time in terms of addressing our administrative needs with the issues that are within the structure of the building. Does that make sense?
Well, I'm just trying to put the different moving pieces together in my head. So the new administrative offices will presumably involve moving to new territory?
Yes, yeah.
So vacating into that package.
Yeah.
What you put before the ministry is a new rebuild on this package with the archdiocese?
What we put for the ministry is not necessitated on this package, just the concept of a rebuild of the school, potentially here.
But there wouldn't be any other lounge in Cathedral, like seriously?
Probably not, but we have to leave that as a little bit of an option for them in terms of where they're coming from. Probably not, you're right, this is the most likely location, indeed.
So that, at what point? I'm just trying to figure out with this proposal.
Yeah.
Which you said there's a commitment to trying to maintain a school here on both sides.
Yeah.
At what point in the timeline is it clear from the ministry? Or is this like an easy help for the ministry to say, oh, okay, well, you've got the archdiocese and take around and.
I think in fairness to the ministry, I don't think, that's a fair question, but in fairness to the ministry, I don't think there is such thing as an easy out. Like we trust that they'll do the discernment process in terms of things. Our idea is going to be, we're going to be forced to move and exit. We're trying to purchase another location. In terms of formalizing something around this location, whether that be an answer from them. Our concern is from a fiscal perspective of us hanging on something and maintaining dollars and cents operating costs, whatever the building is with it, but being in a new location and an unknown waiting period from the Ministry of Education for a decision being made towards a potential rebuild. So we're going to have to gauge that and chatting with them.
It's that sale to the archdiocese that will fund your new offices.
No, well,
the timeline?
A sale of anything would be part of it. A sale of anything would be a portion of what we would do for it. There are other funds that we pulled together for years, significantly more than that, to be able to fund the business case for it. But that would be a portion of a sale from it that would be included in our plan. Correct.
So I guess what I'm trying to ask is in the timeline of this, is the sale of is the new school board offices contingent on sale of property, or are you going to go ahead with the new school board office in any case? And is the archdiocese center essentially integrated into a new build, or how do those three pieces fit together?
You're into some details that we don't have full answers for you at this point yet. Proceeds of sales from this would certainly be considered into a business case, obviously, because we're removing from one administration center to another. So that's a consideration for us in terms of it. Would we be in a position to go otherwise? Yes, we would fiscally to be able to make that happen. Well, we've been contingent and built a plan to be able to do that regardless of where the sale is. But again, in response to taxpayers, dollars from an administrative center sale makes sense for us towards a new administrative center in terms of how we're being fiscally responsible. So it's not as linear here, perhaps, as you're getting at, and you're right in saying moving pieces. We're trying to have those conversations with the Ministry of Education to get a better understanding. Sorry, I know that's convoluted, and that's kind of been our role in this one. Yeah.
We have a question here, then here, and then I see a hand back here.
I think since, like, you know, we have council there, city administration, archdiocese, and the school board, I think it's important for everyone to realize, like, this playground is still like what I think us as residents see as green space. Like, you know, it might be gravel, but like, we don't have many play structures in this neighborhood anymore. You know, we've lost the Lucy Ely Park. We will get green space back there, some, but we have, and like, I completely understand why the Y is appropriate. I'm not saying anything about the Y. I just feel like that area, we still see as green space. So whatever goes in here, we're still losing more and more green space. Like, this neighborhood, even if you look on a city map, like, you can look at other neighborhoods and you see so much green space. You do not see that in Cathedral. So my point to city administration is, I think this area should be bought by the city and the entire area made into a park, because like, it is just something that this neighborhood needs desperately. We need more spots for our kids to safely play and be kids. Like, we have so much traffic in this neighborhood that I feel like city administration should address 13th Avenue, Victoria Avenue. I submitted a service request, because I live on Victoria, but how dangerous it is. More space for our kids to play is what we need. So that is why I am voting for the city to buy this parcel. Maybe it's an exchange of land later on. And you guys can have a little Capital Point site to build it on.
Probably didn't ask for a capital point.
No, but like, why not? Like, I just feel like that is what we need in this neighborhood. So I really want that to be understood, that this playground is green space for us.
Thank you. Nope, that's a great point, and that's kind of exactly the kind of feedback we're gathering tonight. Thank you very much.
Just kind of building off of that for one, keeping that space. I know that years ago, the whole CVCA put a lot of money into the new play structure and also into the spinning tower. And then I actually see stuff like that plaque and other stuff. So it'd be good if you kept like part of that. As some kind of monument or historic thing for when the building's gone, and then that play structure can kind of survive around with something in this park. But it'd be nice to actually see some with the church continuing with the school, keep that nice thing as well.
Thank you. That's a piece that has been raised to us, and it's very viable. It's new and viable equipment. That is an important piece, and I appreciate how it's been articulated by both. That certainly has been something that we've had initial discussions. This is definitely an affirmation of interest from the community for it.
As I understand it, we have two more or less dilapidated buildings on this site right now. You are going to find new office space or build new office space somewhere. There's any downtown. So the school is going to close next June. How long is this neighborhood going to be looking at two abandoned, boarded up, dilapidated buildings on this site?
We've already priced out the what a demolition would be for it.
I was going to say, is demolition
Absolutely, yes.
Is it on the cards, you think?
Absolutely.
Because you're still talking about getting somebody to buy the space.
No, our concept was originally, prior to recognizing the issues, no one's gonna buy it. It's got huge issues and you don't even have your electrical with it. So we've done the pricing out already of demolition. Well, after the exit of the school, of course.
Okay, wait for the kids to get it. Sorry. It took somebody on in the meantime.
For sure. Yeah, no, 100%. And again, we've received an updated quote on that because that has been made clear from plenty of folks in informal conversation that would be very important.
Because there's no point much in the green space over there if you've got, squatters or.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question up front here,
Thank you.
and then I see yourself, and then back there. My question might be just as much for the city as it is for you. I'm also concerned, just like what you said, with the loss of just even 1 inch of green space in our neighborhood. Because like you said, when you look at the map, most of our green space is on the southern part of our neighborhood. And probably you would also see a tendency for the property values to rise the farther south you go. There tends to be more Regina housing, say on like 18 block of things. And so the loss of Lucy Park may not have been lost for a lot of people in the neighborhood, but my son has about 6 friends who live within a block of there, and they are heartbroken about the loss of their park. And he's been riding his bike across 13th and across Victoria to go up to Lucy Park. Anyway, my point is, like you said, I just wonder if there's any consideration on the part of the city at purchasing this lot as well. And then if there was at any point, ministry approval to build a new school, then it wouldn't be sold to a third party. It would still be available for school. And like you said, this is where, right here, I grew up in the neighborhood. I'm raising my kids in the neighborhood. And this park is my childhood memories, this whole park. And same for every kid here. And it definitely includes this part here. It includes the part that's part of the early learning center, all of its green space. And as soon as you lose any in an inner city neighborhood, you're never getting it back. And I just wonder if and the other thing I'd say is I've been looking at the property maps for the city, and in all the new areas, and I've been there while my kids have been playing soccer, the school is generally attached to a city-owned park. And so that must be the kind of more modern way of doing the development and zoning. And in all the old neighborhoods, I made a list of all the inner city schools where it's just purely like Albert School, Seven Stones, Sacred Heart, Kitchener, Thompson, Holy Rosary, Connaught, Crescent. They're all owned by the school board, which probably seemed perfect in 1912 when it never seemed like a school would close. And so I guess I'm gonna ask the city, I'll never be in a room with you again, probably. Because I am. I'm just gonna put out a wish and for the city to make this more park space. And I guess with the folk festival potentially losing their space, I just wonder if the city purchased it, if there'd be, it might be able to help solve problems of the lack of green space, especially for kids north of 13th and towards Albert Street.
Duly noted, as the neighbor was kind enough to say, like very preliminary conversations there, and that's another piece of the puzzle that we certainly will revisit in further conversation. That was, we were looking to, and you can see both the Archdiocese of the city who have been kind enough to join us here tonight. They'll hear from this group and inform our further conversations.
Thank you so much to everybody.
Very much, thank you.
Let's hear.
I went to Holy Rosary School. I lived, grew up just at the end of 14th Avenue there. Now I live just in Gisborne. So I'm very emotional about this school. So when it's going to be demolished, are you going to keep any aspects of it that could be incorporated into something else as a village?
Our facilities and design folks have become pretty adept at that. And there are some folks who have thoughts and skills in that area far beyond me. If you look at the facade, the front facade over at Sacred Heart Community School, they did a beautiful job of preserving some of the limestone, some of the Catholic statues. We're about to do it over at St. Pius. We were there with the trustees, and they have some legacy pieces that are being moved from the old building before demolition that are going over to the new location. So 100% will be a consideration. I can't tell you what it will look like. That's not really my jam, but absolutely it would be incredibly important to us as an organization to preserve that.
No, did it?
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, that was a great example.
And my grade 8 classroom.
Fair enough.
There would be a significant portion of that be able to stay like in the neighborhood? Or was the idea to do
the legacy pieces?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are wide open to that conversation for sure. I think that in some way, shape, would make a lot of sense. So yeah, we would have to converse with folks and figure out some of these other arrangements, but yes.
Yeah, because that might be preferable than to moving it.
Yeah.
Or like doing like they did with the Winston Noble thing where they just put it out there.
Very much noted, thank you.
Here, just had a question over here, and then we'll come here.
This might be another one that's a little bit more for the city, is that this is a very, very large parcel of land. Is there any chance that should things move forward in a certain direction, let's say, that land could be subdivided into parcels that could then be perhaps half of it kept as one land use versus another? It seems like to designate that entire piece of land to say, okay, it's this one specific land use, that if a portion of it does have to change, that it can be subdivided. part of it can at least be kept.
I think that's kind of the initial thought here with having the city take this portion and someone else take
Even
this.
parcel 24, that the city would subdivide that parcel into multiple parcels that could each have separate land uses, should the city decide that.
Okay.
Yeah, I see.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Points for conversation, got it. I think I hear what you're saying there. Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
I don't mean this question to be gaslighting.
Okay.
Okay. We've heard from one potential interested party, another potential interested party. Have there been commercial interest?
We've not entertained, and I can say this unequivocally, a single conversation with anyone aside from these two entities. That goes back to the integrity of the board of saying there are two groups that we have obviously a longstanding partnership with the Archdiocese. We're not going to say otherwise to anyone. It's been conversations for well over a decade. The city made sense for us to show up. They were kind enough to host me in Nikki's office several weeks ago, probably a month and a half ago, when I came to them to invite them to come to this and have the initial conversation about the green space. That has been the finite conversations we've had at this point.
Then perhaps I'm asking the wrong group. Has there been commercial interest expressed to the city with regard to this land?
No, but it's not our land, so they wouldn't approach us.
Right, but.
So what I can tell you is in the spirit of the conversations we're having, if you're asking me to look in the future and ask if tomorrow there would be commercial interest in it, my answer would be absolutely there would be. Again, I would go back to, and it's only been one conversation, but the clarity in which school and frankly the community members have expressed, it wouldn't seem to fit the mold, frankly, of what the school has come to us with or what I'm hearing in the room. But if I was just here just to say, do you think there would be commercial interest? Of course there would be.
And we've, to be honest, I've been waiting for the phone call or the email to come this direction because this is public news and everything with it. And for whatever reason, I've yet to hear from anyone in terms of that capacity. So I would suggest the same thing. It would be more than likely that one of us will hear from someone soon, but we've not entertained a single conversation. No one has reached out at this point. Yes. Sorry.
And just up to that point, and given what you said, if that call, and you anticipate that call is going to come, my understanding is that you would say that's off the table, right?
Yeah.
That's correct.
These are the conversations we're interested in carrying forward.
Right, so that's off the table, that discussion.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
That's.
So there's a third option
in
terms of partners, and that's with the organization that has the other part of the park, the Early Learning Center, in terms of growing into that park portion. And perhaps a partnership between early learning. I'm just making this up as I go. A partnership between the city and Early Learning Center. It's kind of a natural growth for you.
I can barely mow my own.
Yeah, like we're not going anywhere, so I mean, there is an opportunity to explore what that could look like. I mean, with the position we're in, we do have to apply for tax exemption every year. So being that we would now own a large park, potentially be the title holder of a large park, that could be a financial risk for us, but yeah, we could be a part of the conversation for sure.
Sorry.
Historic site for some kind, preservation, kind of something. I really don't know much about that, but I know that.
I don't either. Sorry, I don't have that from a commentary piece. That would be something we would have to do some asking.
So before I close or request to close the meeting, I just want to give everybody a chance to kind of digest and see if there's any last questions. Obviously, the conversation doesn't have to stop here. So if you get home or in the next few days are communicating with your neighbors and you have further questions, please feel free to reach out. But I'll do a call for last questions.
Hi. Can I assume that you will be having further meetings at different stages based on what decisions are made?
Yeah, well, I think our communication plan, we have not strategized beyond where we're at tonight, and we were hoping to get some information from this which will inform that. But our goal has been through this to make sure that we are updating the community in any decisions moving forward. So yes.
Yes.
One thing I've lived right beside here for 25 years. I have seen this school, and I've raised, we have 5 kids. And I have seen this school morph into an institution who was, with my grandson, done incredible work because he was in a flux. And with my other kids going to other schools, they were great. But for the kids that had problems, this school has really been able to relate to them with the parents. And they had something special about this school because of that. I was wondering, I don't know how they do it, but it's going to be a real loss having that atmosphere and what this school has accomplished. In the years I've been here, especially the last 10, 15 years, they have done some amazing work. And I don't know how they do it or what they did, but with my grandson, it just turned him into a wonderful man. And 90% credit I have to almost give to this school. And we're not Catholic. It's just because they done some really good work. And there's another couple who, they were a gay couple who brought their kids here, and they really done an amazing job with them too. So I don't know how this is going to keep on going, but every principal seemed to bring something different and amazing. And there's something special about this school.
I think we definitely see that as well. And I know our staff here absolutely are committed to this community and to the students and the families in a very unique way. So we appreciate your words. We understand the loss to the community. It's a loss to our division. But the words that you've shared in terms of being the right place for all people of unique needs and backgrounds, that's something we hold very close to our hearts, and that is something that there's been a lot of growth in a lot of areas. And the wonderful staff from this school will be dispersed into our other communities as well.
Yeah. I know there's no choice.
I know. Well, you know what, I appreciate you sharing that, because for those that are here, it's good for them to hear as well that isn't just themselves feeling that. It's a very special community.
Folks, before Shauna wraps here, so my name, phone number are on our website. Please, you've been fantastic tonight. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to be vulnerable and tell you the reality. And some of it is unfortunate reality in terms of what's gotten us to where we are. But you've been very thoughtful in terms of what you've brought to the table here. And we are 100% committed to ongoing conversation. Easiest to start with me, and then I can work with my outstanding board here to further inform our conversations and our discernment, as we obviously have some options we thought and maybe some new ones that were introduced in the conversation tonight.
The website.
Sorry, Sean.
Yeah.
Can you just tell us what the website actually is?
We'll go old school.
And we actually have a hand up before that, so I'm going to take one last question over here and then we'll close.
It's actually just a comment and a thank you. From the Cathedral Village Community Association, over half our board is here tonight. Obviously, we've heard a lot of concern about this school closing, as well as the space in the park especially. And I just want to say thanks for hosting the community tonight and thinking of the community with your future use of this space. Obviously, it's really known how vital this park is all week here. And hopefully we can keep that and hopefully much even more possible. But thanks again for keeping the community in mind, and we're happy to work with you. as this progresses. Whatever that looks like.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And thank you to everybody that has come out. And I know that this is people that are very committed to your community. And I know that busy lives mean that there's a whole lot more than sit in this room that are equally as committed to this community. And I hope that what you're seeing tonight is a reflection of the fact that our servant leadership style from our division is that we want to honor what is rightful to the community in this decision that has been very difficult to discern through, and that we will continue the conversation. And now that we are further along in our decision process about what needs to be done within the safety of our students and our staff, we'll be able to further discern with the potential opportunities for this space and reconvene in a meaningful way. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. And I am going to call for adjournment, and I believe it has to be one of the trustees. So thank you, Ryan. If I can ask Trustee Vicky Bennell to close us with prayer.
Students, please join in the sign of our faith or by your breath. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Loving God, thank you for being with us as we gathered this evening to discuss future plans and thoughts for Holy Rosary School community, students, and families. Lord, our discussions have not been easy, and we have used our faith and your strength to guide us in our deliberations to do what we believe is best for the safety and well-being of our students. We ask that you be with all of us as we journey together, facing the inevitable changes with strength, understanding, and compassion. We ask all of this through Jesus Christ. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Vicki. So thank you so much for coming. I'm not sure which way you came into the building, but now at this time of day, it's straight down that hallway.